What are good boundaries for Holiness Christian couples to have while dating? Boundaries.
Well, I think for one, it's important to note in that question, you said Holiness Christian couples. So as you are pursuing virtue in the inward person, God is going to give you a conscience about what your actions are, if they're right or if they're wrong. And in every relationship, it's not just, a girlfriend and a boyfriend relationship, but your mom and your dad, family relationships, friend relationships. God gives you a conscience and directs you, and I think it's important to have a right relationship with every person in your life. And God can lead you and guide you even in a relationship.
I'd say one thing to remember, though, you're never above temptation.
Yeah.
My question would be, how old is this Holiness Christian couple?
Right.
That would be my first thought.
Yeah.
Because
It changes with age.
I crack up, I mean, some of these kids are 13 and 14, and they're this Holiness Christian couple, and they're not even old enough to be,
Driving a car.
liking one another. I mean,
Do your homework.
Exactly. So number one is, how old is this couple?
Yeah.
And how in this relationship are they? How serious is this relationship? And then thirdly, avoid every appearance of evil. And so I think never be alone until you're right close to be getting married. You need to be with other people. You need to be in groups. I take the appearance of evil very seriously in my own life. I mean, so seriously that when I have friends that drink non-alcoholic drinks that look like alcoholic drinks, I don't drink those. That makes me a nervous wreck. That I would make someone stumble. I'm just saying.
Right.
This is just me. So I'm just saying that's very important to me. How old is the couple? How serious is the couple? And that they take the appearance of evil and they take abstaining from the works of the flesh very seriously. And that will protect them. That's not not to bind them.
Right.
That's for their protection, the protection of their witness ministry, whatever it is that they do in their life. It will be a help to them in the future. That's my 10 cents.
Very good.
I think so too. Is not every person some people have had more than one boyfriend, more than one girlfriend. So they may be your boyfriend, but that doesn't mean 2 years from now they're going to be your husband. So respect yourself, respect them. Make sure you're aware of that. That just because they're your boyfriend does not mean they're going to be your husband. So that doesn't give you the right to just jump ahead to things that are reserved for marriage, because they're not your husband. They're your boyfriend. Even if they're your fiance, they're still not your husband. Things can fall apart. So just remember that. Just don't assume because, he loves me and I love him and we've promised ourselves to each other, then we can just do whatever we want to do. That's not the case. You have to preserve yourself and his self and keep your reputation, and like Sister Ruth said, just abstain from the very appearance of evil.
One thing I've always heard too, and it's important to keep in mind, is like she was saying, Lord help us all to have that mindset of purity and pursuing virtue. But one thing to really keep in mind is, as Shayla was saying, if this is someone you may not end up marrying, you've got to be able to face this person at a camp meeting. If you're up on a platform trying to minister and you look out in the congregation and you see so-and-so and this person and that person, you don't want anything to be a hindrance. I mean, a good rule too to keep in mind is, even if you're seriously dating, obviously you need to have a pure heart, and like Sister Ruth said, I believe it's very important to abstain from the appearance of evil, but also, could you, if it doesn't work out, if it's not God's will and you discover that, can you go up to his wife 10 years from now and shake her hand with genuine love and no reservations, no shame, nothing that would cause her, I know that they dated before, and cause her mind to wander or anything like that. It's about just conducting yourself in a way that is pleasing to God as a godly lady, like they've already discussed, and just being future minded. We get short-term vision so often, but we have to look past that and try to think about your children and your future. If you're in ministry, it's so important. You don't want to put something in your path that's going to prevent you from being in ministry or a blessing to someone else later.
Just a something quick just to add there, just a scripture in Proverbs 12, verse 4, it talks about a virtuous woman is a crown to her husband. If you're not virtuous, you can't be a crown. And, you're in the process. What you do today affects your virtuousness. That's a word tomorrow,
You have to remember the people that your peers now are going to be the ministers whenever your generation moves on. So you don't want to be like Sister Brittany said, you don't want to be a minister's wife and somebody's looking at you like, oh, I know what they were like when they were a teenager. I know what they were like when they were dating so-and-so. So you want to keep your testimony pure. That's something my dad always drilled into me during the time I was dating who's my husband now. Just, you got to watch your testimony. And so it's very important.
That's why Christian activities are good, church activities.
Yeah.
You can be with people and not really be with people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You might like
Yeah.
Tommy, and Tommy might like you, and you can get to know each other in a
Right.
group
Right.
atmosphere, and there's no pressure. You know what I'm saying? And 2 weeks from now, you can't stand Tommy, okay? So, but he wasn't your boyfriend, but you did get to know him through these group activities. And another thing is, Christian young couples, you can be alone and not be alone. You can go to a church dinner and sit at a table together and be alone, but you're not alone. You've got 200 people in the fellowship hall. So when couples start pairing off and wanting to be alone, really alone, that's when the red flags go up. And that's when the warning bells ring. Because you are in a getting to know each other time.
You can cut this out too, because I don't know how long this goes, but something I see now that wasn't in our day. Okay, back in our day, it was telephones
Yes.
with a cord,
Yeah.
and your whole family was
Right.
around, and it was calling cards, and you only had so many minutes.
Telling you get off the phone.
Now, you
Yeah.
know, okay, well, obviously, dinosaurs were roaming the earth at that time. Just kidding. But it's a different day.
Yes.
And a boy said recently something about being FaceTiming with a girl for 8 hours,
Oh my.
but they were just friends.
No.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'm just throwing this out here.
Yeah.
You can cut this out, maybe
Yeah.
have another discussion about this.
Right.
But
They can
at
get
another
too
time,
familiar with
okay?
each other over
But
the phone.
this virtual friendships
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
between Holiness Christians, and if you're talking in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm sorry. To me, that goes back to modesty.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, and my mom and dad said if it can't be said before midnight, it probably don't need to be said.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
really, I'm not kidding. And I say that a lot too. I tell Brother Brian, he always makes fun of me for that.
Honestly.
But I do think that this is a new era that you guys are going to have to talk about. But these virtual friendships, they're huge. They're everywhere. And they're just friends, but they're not just friends. And they're talking to how many girls for
Right.
how many hours,
Exactly.
but they're not even dating. This is a whole nother subject.
Right.
But I think it needs to play into this somewhere, and it definitely needs to be addressed. And we need some modern dating boundaries and friendship boundaries for this day and this time.